Okay. I would like to call to order the 1168th regular meeting of the Board of Library Trustees of Palos Verdes Library District. Can I have a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Trustee Park,
Here.
Trustee Easton,
Here.
Trustee Butler,
Here.
Trustee Uno,
Here.
and Trustee Wong.
Here.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
I have a motion from Trustee Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I meant aye myself also. Okay, so we'll start with president remarks and board member comments. So I'll start with what's already written here. We held two special meetings, one on January 22nd, which was a budget workshop in an open session. No actions were taken. We held a second special meeting on Wednesday, February 19th, to discuss MOU negotiations. That was a closed session. Again, no actions were taken. So I wanted to add an additional one that's not written here, which is you all should have received a reminder that you need to complete your Form 700. Make sure you get those done. I was asked to make sure that everyone, works on that sooner rather than later, so that no one's at risk of being fined for not getting it in on time. I would like to mention, so yesterday I was in the administration office and I learned that the passport group had a milestone of 20 years of doing passports in the community, and that they just passed the $3 million earnings point. So I just wanted to recognize their work and thank them for continuing to do that work for the community and the library district. Let's see, then I have one more comment. So last week I was in San Jose for the Conference for California Women, or California Women Conference. And they had some very good programs. For the keynotes, we had Brittany Griner and we had Simone Biles and Jane Fonda. So very, very good speakers. And there was one session that I attended that was about building trust, and it was, they had a lot of really good recommendations. And I say that because later on we'll talk about some other opportunities to attend webinars or presentations on that same subject, because some of the things they said, are helpful in group settings like this. And also, that was the day that we had the horrible rain. It was also the night of the Educator of the Year dinner. I almost didn't make it. I had to go straight from the airport because my flight kept getting delayed. But I made it in time to hear the wonderful stories from the educators, as it's always a wonderful event. Does anyone have anything else that they would like during this board member comment section? Okay. So now we're moving on to, do we have any communications or comments from the public concerning items not on the agenda?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Now, the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
I have a motion from trustee Wong to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
So we have no opposed. Thank you. So now we're going to go to item 9, upcoming board and library trustee conferences and events. Director Addington.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So there's 3 events that you'll notice in your, on your agenda that we'd like to call out today. The first one takes place on Sunday, February 23rd, and this is our 16th annual Living History Museum of African American Heroes. This is an event hosted by the Peninsula Center Library Young Readers Department and many, many local community partners. It'll be held here in the community room at 2 p.m. And it's a truly lovely and wonderful event if you have the opportunity to attend. Numerous children of all ages present their favorite African-American hero, and they act as if they were the hero and tell the story of their lives. It's really lovely, and if you have an opportunity to come, I would highly encourage you to. The second is on Friday, February 28th. It's the 10th annual South Bay Legislative Meet and Greet. This is at 8 a.m. at the Nakano Theater in Torrance, California. This is an event where local legislators come and just share thoughts about what's going on in the community, what they feel about legislation in Sacramento and statewide and federal. There is no fee to do this. If you would like, you can click on the link and register yourself, or you could reach out to either myself or Executive Assistant Bender and we'll register for you. But it is a lovely event. The third is an event on Thursday, May 15th. I will note, we've talked about this event before. It is the same day as our regular scheduled board meeting, but it is in the morning. So while it takes place in Ontario, it is possible to go to that event and still make it to this if you plan accordingly. But this is the 2025 Serving with a Purpose Conference. It's from 8:30 to 4 in the Ontario Convention Center. It is a ticketed event. The tickets, when you add in all the surcharges and everything else, are about $103.22. It does include a continental breakfast, a catered sit-down lunch, and a number of very good speakers. The Serving with a Purpose event very much focuses on trustees, friends, foundations, and all of those support groups that support libraries. So I know many of you have gone in the past. I do think it's a wonderful event if you have the opportunity to go. The other thing I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, this was something that was brought up in one of our, the aforementioned special meetings when we talked about board travel. It was requested that in consort with the upcoming conferences and events and whatnot, I make the board aware of just where we are with travel in general. So the entire budget for travel is $12,500, and we are at this moment at $59,5861, little over half, well, a little under halfway. So we have about $6,541 in board travel, events, and whatnot. Looking forward, one of the things that I also just, again, as an informational only, just so that the board can look and plan ahead. One of the things that Executive Assistant Bender and I did was provide the board with a calendar of ongoing events, kind of month by month, so that you could look ahead. So between now and the end of this fiscal year, which would accompany the monies that I just mentioned, we do have a few things that will have costs associated with them, should the trustees choose to attend them. There is the CSDA Leadership Conference, which at this point in time, I don't believe any trustees will be going to because everyone's already been. There are the CSDA Legislative Days. This is the event in Sacramento where typically our legislative liaison would go, and if they could not go, then they direct that often to another trustee. I know many of the trustees have been to that event. And I do expect the Chamber of Commerce to do, again, a State of the Peninsula Mayor's Breakfast. This is a very local event through our own Chamber of Commerce. It is typically a ticketed event, and I would estimate the tickets to be approximately $100. That's in alignment with the past, and that event is in May. And then, of course, the Serving with a Purpose event is in May. Beyond that, the largest expense and really largest event between now and the end of the year is the American Library Association's annual conference. That conference is going to be held in Philadelphia this year, so it does require a little bit of travel and hotel. Registration for that is open now, and if you are an ALA member, and I believe trustee membership is approximately $75 for support staff, trustees, things like that, then the early bird registration is $275, which is a very good deal if, again, you plan accordingly and know that you're going. Given all that, $6,500 is a fair amount, but it is, of course, something that needs to be shared amongst all the trustees. So as you look for the next several months, realizing what costs are out there and what you might be interested in, my recommendation would be to either talk to President Uno or myself about what you're interested in. And I will endeavor to have the financials available to the board every month when I bring up upcoming conferences or ticketed events, just so you have a better understanding.
So I do have a question about the 12,500. So was that, is that before adding additional, or is that what we originally budgeted?
It was not what we originally budgeted. We did add some funds into that. The board travel line items have gone through a variety of changes over the last several years. At one point in time, it was a single line item, and then we broke it out so that it would actually be two separate line items. But what we found we were doing was borrowing from one to backfill the other. So in consultation with our own policies and in looking at how we truly utilize those items, we actually decided to merge them back together, knowing that last fiscal year, we did go a little bit over budget on both of them, just to ensure that didn't happen again, while we again sort of assessed the two budgets being one again and looking at what travel looks like going forward. Finance Manager Lou did add some to that, bringing it up to the 12.5.
Okay. So,
It's been as low as 2,500.
right,
I do believe this is the highest it's ever been.
Right.
But it's been every variation of.
right. So I'm going to repeat some things that I said when we talked about the budget previously. So it seems to me, since I've come, we've been increasing our budget for travel, attending events, every budget cycle. I'm particularly concerned that in the middle of this year, we're feeling the need to increase our budget because it suggests that we're not staying within the budget that we are giving ourselves. And that suggests to me that we're not having enough conversation about the events that we're attending. So we are 5 individuals, but we are a single board, and there are never discussions about what people are going to attend and what they are planning to bring back to the board to benefit the work that we're doing. I'm also concerned that this puts us in alignment with what is set aside for the staff when there are many more of them than there are of us. And in our discussions, learning that it's not just the librarians, but it's also our facilities managers, our finance managers, who are going and actually bringing back ideas that they are definitely applying to the work that they are doing. And so I'm going to appeal to my colleagues to think about, which activities are most beneficial to the work that we are doing as trustees. So as Director Addington talked about serving with a purpose, I have gone several times, and I know others have gone. And at that event, you hear about what's happening in California libraries. You hear from other people who are doing the same type of work we're doing. So it's a very useful event to go to, and it's local. And, the fact that it says it ends at 4 o'clock, I never stay for the breakout session because traffic is so bad here that you want to get back. So it's a really good one to attend. I will say that I maintain my ALA membership, and I don't know why this always happens to me, but I'm part of the group that is, again, for trustees and friends, and they have a lot of really good webinars that addresses topics that are relevant to us. So, I'll make this shorter, but I'm really uncomfortable with us taking that additional 2,500. So just because it was put there, I don't think we should use it because that is not what we originally budgeted. And we should be respectful of the budget that we originally created or approved and stick to that budget. And I will reiterate again, it's not a good look that 5 of us have the same budget as the staff for travel. And, the fact that we're in an MOU year, I think we really should be cognizant of what message we are unintentionally sending when we're making decisions about how we're spending money. Because one of our first responsibilities is fiscal responsibility. And so we want to make sure that we're demonstrating that. And part of that is us having more conversation about how we're spending. And I recognize it's not a huge amount of money, but it's a pot of money that's set aside that we should be managing better and not continuously increasing.
And I'll add to that I completely admit that I also do not follow this budget as closely as I probably should. And so I've had a discussion with Finance Manager Lou about just exactly the information that he provided for me today, which is where we are in the budget, how much we've spent, what do we have left, what is upcoming, and I'll endeavor to give that information to the board every single month when we get to this particular line item, just so that you're, even more aware of like what the costs are and where we are in that standing. So we will endeavor to do that as well and be more on top of it.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Director Addington, do you know where the ALED conference is in 2026, by chance?
I'm sure we could look it up really quick.
Okay, just curious.
I don't know where it is.
I think they do have it 3 years out.
I'm sure they have it listed. Deputy Director Roy might be able to look it up right now. I will say, just going forward, I know one of the next kind of big conferences is the California Library Association Conference. That conference is in October, and it is in Riverside. So it's a hotel stay. Nobody's going to go back and forth between Riverside, but I believe everybody would drive. So it's another thing to kind of keep in mind.
For purposes of seeing going forward, is it possible to see where the 5,958 that we've spent so far has been allocated, to see if there's patterns of,
Yeah.
what events have been attended in the past, so we can more accurately gauge what that budget should look like?
I mean, somewhat, yeah. I can go through, and we have the way they're broken out in what's the online form that we do all of our billing in? QuickBooks. The way it's, thank you. I knew Finance Manager Lou was going to chime in there for a minute. The way it's listed in QuickBooks, it's often just like an accounts payable. It's like it got put on the credit card. But I can endeavor to try and go through and say, like, this is how much we spent on this, or, we can break it down a little bit to say this was an airline ticket or a registration or a hotel, and this was just to the PV Chamber of Commerce. we might be able to do something like that. I can endeavor to have some information for you like that. Even if we do an email in between meetings, just so that you kind of know where it broke down. Yeah, we can do that.
To answer Trustee Butler's question, they do have the conferences scheduled out through 2028. So 2026 is in Chicago, 2027 New Orleans, 2028 Denver.
New Orleans is awful.
It's going to be a while, I guess, before it comes
all
back to
kind of-
California.
So it
Costly.
doesn't come to the West Coast that often because
Very low.
it's very expensive for other folks to come over here.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, a lot of librarians don't attend because of the expense. Or they pay for themselves.
New Orleans always seems like a really great one, but it's always so hot in New Orleans when ALA is there. Just FYI.
So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Are there any other questions about the upcoming conferences and events? All right, so now the PFL PVLD joint agreement update from Director Addington.
Thank you, Madam President. You have a short memo from me in your packet, but I really just wanted to give the trustees an update. I know that we had spoken a while back ago about how representatives from the Peninsula Friends of the Library and the Palos Verdes Library District met and had a joint meeting about the two organizations and how they work together and how they could potentially work more successfully together. One of the things that was determined would be beneficial is some kind of a joint agreement, an MOU, something that would outline what each organization's expectations, roles, responsibilities might be in general, and then specifically to the other organization. So a team was put together consisting of myself, of the PFL Executive Director Merlin David, and initially it was PFL staff member Diana Morgan. We met once as that team, and prior to the second meeting, it was determined that Diana may just simply not be the right person for that. It just doesn't really fall into what she does with the Friends. So very quickly, the Friends were responsive and allocated a new board member to be on that team, and that gentleman's name is Rob Willett. So with the new board, with the new team of myself, Deputy Director Roy, Merlin David, and board member Rob Willett, we've met now, I think, 3 times. We have a shared document that we've been working on, and I think it's going well. We definitely have, a lot of input. We're trying to arrange it in a way that makes more sense. We had a very good meeting today about it and just organizationally, what we think needs to be outlined, what doesn't. I do think that when we get to a certain point, I'll have our general counsel take a look at it just to give me some ideas and advice on like indemnification clauses or, insurance needs or anything that I might be missing. But we're also trying actively to work together on what areas we feel need to have that like clarity between the two organizations. So really that's all. There's no, big formal update. I do believe that it will be a beneficial document. We're hoping that when people read it, it'll be very clear what the role of the library is in relation to the Friends, how the Friends utilize our spaces, but also what our expectations of them are and what their expectations of us are. Of course, we'll bring it to the board. We would welcome the board of the Friends feedback, the library board feedback. I'll get some legal advice just to make sure that we're, hitting all the right notes. It is a hope. I would hope that we would have something to bring to the, board maybe by the end of March, early April, and then get more feedback, more guidance, more advice, more input. Ultimately, I would love to have this as an actual signed document, ideally before June, so we could bring it to the June meeting and have it formalized. It would be my expectation that the document is signed by the president of the Friends and the president of the board. But that's also open for, input when the time comes. So I just wanted to let you know that it's happening. We're working on it. We've had a couple of very good meetings. So far, I think I like what I've read, what I've seen, what I've added. I look forward to the addition of more, and I look forward to bringing it to you guys, fairly shortly. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that it was happening and we were moving forward.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's on track, and you answered some questions I had about timelines, and
Right.
so I'm glad that's happening as well. So thank you for that update.
You're very
Does
welcome.
anyone else have any comments or questions?
Jennifer, have you identified any other libraries that have an agreement with a Friends organization that we?
Oh, absolutely. I have, I think, maybe 5 or 6 sample documents that have been shared with the entire team about everything from very, very detailed. The city of Glendora has a very detailed, multi-page MOU with their foundation. City of Thousand Oaks has a rather simple 2-page agreement, sort of, you do this, we'll do this. San Mateo, I think, was one of the other ones we had. I'm not even sure all of them, but yes. I reached out to the SCLC directors list and just asked anybody who had an agreement, MOU, anything with their friends or foundation if they could share it with us. I even got LA County's agreement, which is interestingly very simple. Very, very simple. But it was done many, many, many years ago.
Well, that's great. Would you mind sharing that with us, just so we can see
Sure.
it as prep for
Yeah,
our final review?
no problem at all.
I like them. I don't know if anybody else wants them.
Director Addington, can you, you mentioned the directors group, was that Southern California?
Southern California Library Cooperatives.
Okay.
They have a director's like listserv. Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you for that update. I'm glad it's going well. Now we have the proposals for Deep Valley Entryway Terrace from Facilities Manager Gutierrez.
We're going to welcome Facilities Manager Gutierrez to the podium, but I'm going to start this because very recently, basically yesterday,
I think it was yesterday.
we got an update on the terrace project from the Friends of the Library that I would like to share with the board, which completely changes this particular agenda item. So, the Friends of the Library are no longer supportive of financing the terrace project. After a very robust conversation, the Friends board have decided that they have some very, very serious concerns about the price. The initial estimate, although it was really a guess on a project that was very different from what we are looking at right now, was approximately $500,000. It quickly grew to 750, and then 1 million, and then 1.5, and it's finally ended at the $1.7 million estimate that is actually included, I believe, in your packet. When you add the percentage that is uniformly agreed on for change orders and contingencies and any other changes that might somehow come about, we're really looking at a project of approximately $2.5 million. Having only one bid for this for many, many months, and ultimately only getting one more that initially we would have shared with the board and said, in an ideal world where there were multiple bids, the second bid we did get would have been eliminated for not meeting the barest metrics of what we would have required from a bid. So in the grand scheme of things, we really only ever received one valid bid for the terrace project. And we asked all of the contractors to bid both the terrace and the entryway, and only one person bid them correctly. Even then, when asking why people were not bidding, we were told that it was a tricky build, it was a difficult location, there was uncertainty about what anybody was going to find when they started drilling into the ground and dropping, concrete casters. that there was a lot of uncertainty about this very tricky, difficult build. We're also running up now, of course, against a situation where our own architects, our own contractors, and basically every single day in the news, there is an expectation that construction costs, everything from lumber and steel and concrete, are going to increase. Nobody has any idea what kind of tariffs will be imposed, what they will look like, how that will impact anything. And to be quite honest, with the recent fires in the Palisades and Altadena and Pasadena, construction firms have a lot of other options, which is another reason why we got almost nothing on this. Giving all of that, the Friends really felt like this 2.5 million, possibly more, because it's a lot of uncertainty, was just really not delivering the bang for the buck, the ROI on what was expected to be put out. And that the uncertainty truly outweighed the costs and the benefit. I was very, very pleased, however, to hear in conversation with Susan Paul, the president of the Friends, that the Friends are willing, however, and in fact would like to engage us on taking on the financial responsibility of the Deep Valley entryway project, including all the landscaping, the hardscaping, the furniture, everything that we had planned in that project. In fact, they'd like to explore the opportunity of even adding to that project, maybe putting in additional seating areas, maybe running some power, running a water line, so that we can enhance what was already out there and what the plan was to maybe, sort of carve back some of what we might have lost by not building the terrace. We have a quote for the Deep Valley hardscape. It was not originally included in your packet, so we did pass that out to everybody here. And we will, of course, include this in the minutes of this meeting. And if we had any members of the public, we would have made this available to them as well. But this again is an MZN agreement or a contract bid. They did go back and redo it a little bit, just because since they first gave their bid, the costs did go up. But the final grand total of this is $402,000. Friends of the library are very aware that by offering to do more, by offering to put in more seating and whatnot, that would incur more cost. So we fully expect that a $400,000 project could easily be a $600,000 project. They are aware of that. I have been told that they are in agreement across the board with potentially going as high as $1 million, although we would absolutely keep it as structured and finite as we possibly could. But by putting in those change orders, by adding a water line, by adding additional seating, maybe some kind of lighting, that cost would go up. So ultimately, Finance Manager Gutierrez and I had a very long conversation about this. There's no doubt that there's disappointment. We originally envisioned that terrace project as really more, and we continually called it for many months a deck. It was the Friends who looked for something that they could potentially support, and it was through engaging with them and really envisioning and sort of dreaming about what that terrace could be that it grew to what it is now. But we also appreciate that this is a very, very uncertain time. And $2.5 million or more, because again, we just really don't know what's going to happen when you start digging into that hillside, is a great deal of money to spend on a fairly small outdoor space. So while we are disappointed, I personally think the generous offer to reimburse the library for all the costs of the entryway and to even agree to do more than what we have now by adding additional seating and whatnot, is a unique and viable option. That's not to say that down the road, there might be something that we could do in that deck space, but it is hard at this moment in time to envision anything of the robust steel structure that we had actually planned for. Have we spent money? Yes, we have. Will we lose that money? Yes, we will. Because if we truly stop the terrace project, which at this point I don't see any way to continue, if the Friends are not on board funding it, we certainly are not. It was not a project we were going to take on ourselves. I do not believe that the library is in a position to raise $2.5 to $3 million for this single project. I too believe there are other things that would be more valuable than this, especially if we can create an entryway with additional seating and all the things that we're asking for. Obviously, we look to the board for a conversation about this. I don't think there's, I think there's room for conversation. I don't believe that the Friends can be talked into something that they're not comfortable with. And I don't really think that's appropriate, to be quite honest. I don't know that I would, try to get into a position where we're trying to talk somebody into paying for something when we fully understand that there's a lot of challenges there. There might be opportunities down the road for the Friends to take on some larger capital projects. We're actively looking to enhance the Malaga Cove Library in preparation for the 100 years. We have an entire roof to build, to repair and replace, replace. That's an expensive project. There are opportunities for tangibles like that down the road for the Friends. So at this point, obviously, we welcome the board. We welcome comments, concerns, questions. I think my recommendation would be to engage MZN as our contractor for the entryway and to actively work with the Friends of the Library to establish a fundraising mechanism for them to reimburse us all the costs, and to work with COSN to perhaps amplify what we already have designed out there. It would still be it would always have been a beautiful entryway with additional seating, and now it might have more additional seating and, a water line and maybe a space for, a coffee cart at some point in the future or something like that.
Maybe sliding front doors.
Well, I will say, I did mention to President Paul the opportunity of replacing our front doors with more appropriate auto sliding doors, and she said yes. She said those are things that we could add to the augmentation of the entryway and make it even better. So,
Director Addington, I had a question. So the entryway project is just the outside?
correct.
So nothing as of now would be changed beside possibly the door or
To
the entryway?
To our physical building, the only change would be the potential replacement of that entryway door, the Deep Valley entryway door. Everything else would be the hardscaping and landscaping that goes from our front door
To
to
the edge of the
parking lot
building?
and the sidewalk.
To the
The
sidewalk.
sidewalk? Okay.
To the
All the way
parking
to
lot
the
property line, along the building, and to the sidewalk. And we're also talking to the city to try to team up to redo the sidewalk so that it's a standard concrete sidewalk instead of the slate as well.
And I think that the whole purpose of that is because the pavers are effectively buckling, right?
Interestingly, there are no pavers,
Yeah,
part of the problem.
what's in there is basically a type of slate.
Okay.
And so it is complete unflexible hardscape. And because of that, it is cracking and buckling because of the soil that it's on, which is part of the reason why the terrace was so expensive, is because of the expansion soil that is fill from the landfills that they had put here that this building is built on. And so it is clearing all of that out, digging down, putting concrete foundation underneath it, and then putting sand on top of it, of which the paver stones would go on top of, so that if there is expansion and movement and that does, the foundation of the concrete underneath does crack, we're just able to pull up sections of the paver stones and then re-put them back down without having to pour concrete and try to replace the slate that's there. And it gives us a much better opportunity to, mitigate any trip hazards that might come with the way that our soil acts here. And it would also be a lot less slippery than it is when it rains currently as well. That's a big issue that we have too.
The slate that's currently there is incredibly slippery. It's almost like marble. It's also not available anymore. The
Yeah.
quarry that it came from in Italy is gone out of business, and you literally cannot get that slate. So every place where it's need to be replaced, it's been replaced with like concrete.
Can we sell it?
I'm sure it was beautiful when you put it in, but it is very slippery. and
Very
it's certainly outlived its usefulness.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity to, be more sustainable and find something
Right.
that's locally sourced
Yeah.
and less expensive.
What's being spec'd out are basically simple paver stones, which affords us a lot more opportunity for fundraising and things of that nature also down the line. So not only are they more flexible for us to be able to repair it without it looking pretty bad, and us to be able to respond internally and fix it without having to hire a contractor to do it, it also allows us flexibility for other fundraising opportunities in the future too.
So your comments about additional seating, so would that require new planning from the architect to meet that need?
We would have to have amendments to the permit, but we could move forward with the permit and get things started and have those things in with the city. So they can work congruently through. But yes, there would need to be amendments happen. We wouldn't have to pause the whole project because of it.
Okay, and so I'm thinking you have been in conversation with the architect and they're on board to continue to help with.
We've had this information yesterday. And
I
so
have not.
then we said today, let's have the meeting and have a discussion with the board before we start reaching out to the architect and let them know, this is the direction that we have, in case if there was anything that you had as far as specific questions or concerns. Then at that point tomorrow, it's on my agenda to reach out and let them know what is going on. And then we can go from there. But we definitely had talked about having this discussion first before reaching out to the architects.
I will say, I think Carol Beth Cozen and Jill Oliver, the architects that we're working with from Cozen Architecture, I think they will be very disappointed. I don't think they will be surprised. I think they were aware that there was some fairly strong concerns about the ever-increasing costs and the uncertainty about the build.
I think at 2.5 million, that's sort of above what you would want to spend for that kind of a project, so,
It's a lot of money.
yeah, it's a lot of money. I'm a little nervous about approving the entryway without really knowing exactly what we're going to do.
Well, I think in
How long
many,
do you think it would take to come up with some alternatives? I mean,
I think it would probably take, safe to say, weeks to figure out what we would be able to do as far as alternative design. I think that we would probably be able to pull some things together. But if we are going to move forward with the walkway at all, I think that we should get under contract. Because if we wait too long to try to figure those other things out, then the base price of what we have in front of us is just going to continue to rise. From October to now, it already went up 6%. And the prices of materials are already going up exponentially since mid-January.
when do you think they would start work on it if we approved it tonight?
I don't know what their work schedule was, but it would probably be a month and a half of preparation before we're starting to be able to get the wheels moving and people on the ground at the earliest.
Do you think we
at the
could
earliest.
look for the sort of the end case design and get Friends' approval in that period of time?
I think that we
You don't
already
wanna
have a
start
good
changing things
example.
After we've already started construction.
I think we have good examples already of what we might be looking at because of the placeholder furniture that we had, because we have not decided on exactly what furniture we are going to purchase for the space. We had placeholder furniture so that we can get some budgetary prices on that, but figuring out exactly what furniture that we will be putting in, there's just a vast amount of options for us to choose from. So that's something that we're going to have to look a little bit further into. We're trying to be more sustainable, so there's a lot of other options that we can go about in that realm also. But I think the biggest thing that we could talk about, which would be part of the design, isn't necessarily the furniture, because the furniture isn't permitted as far as like what you're putting in, but the infrastructure for supporting the seating areas. So that's if we're putting electrical to there, that's something that we'd be able to put together and say, okay, we have a general idea of how these tables are going to go together here. So these are going to be the spots that we're going to end up putting the power in, or at least we can start and stub it in that area so that when we figure out exactly how it's going to go, then we could put it in that space. We have a general idea of like the front doors, what the design of the front doors are going to be, because that was part of the terrace project. So that would maybe be able just to be rolled over into this project. So I don't think it's starting from scratch, adding the things that they are talking about. I think that is more worthwhile additional work, but I do think that we'd be able to expedite getting those things figured out while the base of the project is going on, because we could get substantially far in this project before those ever come up to be an issue.
Yeah, basically, the analogy is, we know what the rough work is gonna do, so let's do the rough work and we'll worry about the finish later.
Yeah,
And the
the
fact
add-on
is-
finish, yes.
I mean, the fact is, we have an incredibly detailed plan of the entryway. We knew exactly what the entryway was gonna look like. And we're not gonna redo our entire plan. There's gonna be a very finite amount that we can do. There was an area that was kind of deemed to be more of a sculpture garden. Well, I would make that a seating area. It's literally that simple. We're gonna change it from a sculpture garden to a seating area. It doesn't require any additional, understructure. It's just changing the concept of the top. There's really only about maybe 2 places that we could realistically pull a water line from, our plumbing to like an outside access area. And I think we would probably just suggest that. Pull a water line to this level. How and where we use it, we don't know. That'll be a future thought. But we know we can put it here. Can we pull power out into a seating area? We also need to think about if we really want to pull community accessible power to an outside area. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. The whole area was always going to be Wi-Fi'd. That was never, under any other consideration. If the Friends had said, oh, absolutely great, no problem, 2.5 million, let's do it, we have the plans for the entryway. The entryway's done. We have beautiful plans, like with permitting right now,
In permitting.
or in permitting right now. So,
And the only reason why we haven't had the permit approved yet is because of the terrace.
of the terrace.
So if we go back and
we
say the
drop
terrace is
the
gone,
terrace,
we'd be able to obtain a permit pretty quickly from the city as well, or the county.
because that project is just hardscape and landscape. There's
What's
nothing
the-
else.
What is the plan for entry then during the construction?
That
period?
is one of the points that I wanted to bring up tonight. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
On here, obviously, the contractor wants to take the whole space because then they're able to move forward on it a lot easier without having to mitigate a bunch of risks of patrons coming out of that door. However, that is our main entrance. We have about 1,000 in and outs a day on that door alone when we've got hundreds on the other one. So that is where our best access is. That is where the most amount of parking is. And so we've had a discussion where I said, they were pushing on, no, we should shut it down. And I said, fine, tell us how much it's going to cost to do the phase, because they said it's going to be more expensive to phase it. I said, break it out in a line item then, please. And so they broke it out in a line item. So if we do it phased, it is an additional $43,200 to the project, a total of 402. So $445,000 would be the project as far as phased. Now, I have also had discussions of what we might be able to do to lower that cost of it. And I also believe that since the terrace would not be moving forward, it kind of gives us an opportunity to lower it even further. One of the issues was in order to get the equipment in to drill the pylons that we needed to for the terrace itself, we needed to remove 18 truckloads of dirt so that we had a proper grade so that we could get the drill and the pylon in there. And then we would have to bring it back onto the property. And that alone was at least a $30,000 cost. Well, if we're not doing the terrace, we still have to rip up that section anyways, but we don't have to grade it in order to get the equipment in to build the foundation for the terrace. So maybe we're able to take up more of the walkway at one time and leave like an 8-foot strip next to the building. So they're able to complete much more of the project and then be able just to do that last bit when we're there and then open up one side. And then the doors would be, if we did move forward with the doors, that would be a day where that entry is closed and we really don't have anything to do about that. But at least that's, mitigating the amount of hardship on our public having to go to a different entry that doesn't have the same amenities as that one does. And so my recommendation would be to accept this with the phased cost because of those entry issues. But I would work directly with the contractor to see how we could reduce that in whatever way possible that we could reduce that, knowing what we know about the project now.
Well, based on the paperwork you gave us, the new entryway doors and the water and electrical hookup would together cost about $107,000,
Correct.
with most of that for the entryway. So I guess the question is, should we just include that now? In other words, if we think that it makes sense to do that, then why wouldn't we approve that process now also?
I think that that's a good idea if that's something that the board is open to, is extending, is asking for this to be extended, adding those two particular things. I can't guarantee that it would be exactly the same price that is listed on that other form, but I believe it would probably be pretty close to that. And that's something that we could ask for a revision if we wanted to make a motion saying, we would approve a revised contract with an addition of $115,000 to add the door and the coffee cart. I think that would be a possible fair motion.
Right now, when this terrace first came up with the Friends, it
Sorry.
was going to be the Gemmel Terrace. So are we going to name this the Gemmel entryway now, or what are we going to do?
No, in conversation with the president of the Friends, what we thought is that we could identify an area and maybe have the Gremmel community seating, Gremmel community area. The entryway would not be called the Gremmel entryway. This, I would not, that is not the naming that any of us agreed to, and it is not one that I would suggest the board agreed to.
All right, well, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
So,
no, I would not agree to that.
So, but they do see this project as satisfying the commitment to Gremmel to recognize them for their
I think they see
very
it,
generous gift.
I think they see it as a major contribution to that obligation they feel they have to Rita Gremmel's estate.
Well, it comes up to about the same amount of money they were originally going to spend. to do that.
Originally, yes.
Yeah.
So, and knowing that there will be, change charges and whatnot, I mean, it's highly possible that there would be a couple $100,000 more. And what we would do, what Daniel and I would do, is work with Finance Manager Lou and the Friends of the Library to establish, some kind of reimbursement mechanism that said, if we move forward and we engage MZN and we, because we lead this project. So if we lead this project and we do this, in what way and in what stages are we going to get the reimbursement from the Friends to then say, this is the Gremmel family seating area, or something like that, or this is the, Rita Gremmel reading nook on the, those are examples.
All right.
So these were my questions. If we decide to move forward and you're saying we would be reimbursed,
Well,
what guarantee do we have that the Friends are not going to come back and say, wait, that's not, it ended up costing more than we thought. So what agreement do we have in place that they actually are going to follow through?
and I think there's an opportunity there to craft an agreement, to say, yes, the Friends of, the library has dropped the terrace project as something that we are moving forward with. Because again, both projects we were leading everything on those projects. And I think we'd probably have to draft even if it's just a quick, promissory note kind of thing that says the Peninsula Friends of the Library agree to reimburse the library for all costs associated with the Deep Valley entryway redesign, hardscape, furniture, whatnot, not to exceed this amount, perhaps. I would, of course, reach out to the president of the Friends and say, this is something that I think we need as an agency in order to move forward.
Right.
Because you're saying you want to pay for it. We understood that there was always some concern about the terrace, but this is a given project. We were prepared to pay $400,000 on this project right now. You are willing now to take over the cost responsibility for it, which is wonderful, and have even suggested that we enhance the project by adding additional seating. Even better. But we need something that says you're going to pay
Right.
for it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it'd be probably best if we included, what will the new sliding doors do for us? I mean,
And when you're answering that too, could you explain possibly the sliding doors at existing entryway versus at existing curtain wall?
Okay, yes. So the curtain wall is actually the windows where the donor wall is when you walk in to the left of the foyer. And so when we were redoing the terrace, one of the things that they wanted to do is actually put a pair of doors in that wall so that you could come into the foyer directly from the terrace. So those are the doors along the curtain wall. The existing entryway is where we have the two doors that you walk into right now. And the thing is that we are replacing the motors on those doors every 3 to 4 years right now, at a rising cost. It was $10,000, then it was $17,000, because those doors aren't made for, or they're not meant for the amount of people, the opening and closing that it does. That's why the grocery stores and areas like that, that's why they have the sliding doors, because as people come in, there's a lot less resistance on the mechanisms if it's just something that's sliding back and forth, rather than motors with pistons that are pushing these, 75-pound aluminum doors, more than that with the glass, open and closed thousands of times a day. And so having sliding doors, will help mitigate those costs in the future. Not to say that the sliding doors will never break down, because that is just something that does happen, but it'll happen a lot less. It'll be much more robust for the system and the usage of that entry that we have.
okay, so that's a great reason then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would just see if we can get an updated contract that has all of that in it and use that to get the agreement with the Friends.
Sure.
I mean, that'd be my choice. I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
So what is it you need from us tonight?
We would very much like to be able to engage MZN in this contract, because we need to have an agreement with the contractor so we can start working with them. Right now, they've been waiting around for us
Very
for
patiently.
months.
Very patiently.
Months. And we need to be able to say, yes, this project, okay, this project is gonna die, but this project, we want to engage you and we want to get you under contract and now start like, formulating exactly what we're gonna do. We have all the plans.
And this
We
is
just
the-
need to do some change orders.
And this is the original project that the library had planned on doing to start with.
Right,
So I don't think that it's outside bounds to engage in this contract, knowing that we will have further talks with the Friends of the Library at possibly adding additional things and funding the entire project.
So
But
I
at
think-
least we can take the responsibility of this and start moving while we're working on those other things.
So I think what we're looking for is a motion to engage with MZN, but with some caveats that we need some additional information.
yeah, I mean, I think if we, to trustee Park's point, if we wanted to say that, we would agree to engage MZN as the construction and engineering firm for the Deep Valley entryway project, and would like to see an updated quote that included the sliding doors and the water line.
And the hookups.
Yeah, the first alternate
Right.
1 and alternate 2 on the first set you gave us.
So I think that's the initial,
That's,
but
yeah.
then we also need the, updated,
And then, well, and I think the second one is that
and the plan
it may
from
not
the
be so
Friends.
much a motion as it is a directive to staff to engage with the Friends on a reimbursement agreement for the Deep Valley entryway project, and to bring it back to you guys as soon as we can get that.
Remind me, how much do you think we're going to make on the paver, naming the paver?
Well, there's not as many pavers anymore because we were counting the pavers that were on the terrace. But I think in that particular area,
It was 3.4, so I would say that it's probably in the high twos.
yeah, it's in the high 2 millions. Because if you included all the pavers on the terrace.
And I
we-
don't know if the pavers in the terrace were included. I'd have to go back at the notes and see, because since they were talking about, that being part of,
Oh,
the
that's
Gremmel
right.
contribution, then the only
we
pavers that we
included
were
them and
going to
pulled them out.
sell were on the actual walkway. So the 3.4, I believe, is a ballpark of what we were talking about.
All right, and
It's definitely a
if there
$3
was some
million.
hiccup with the Friends funding, we could fund the thing just with the pavers and keep the money and
Oh,
sell those
absolutely.
ourselves,
I mean-
as opposed to having them do it.
Certainly, I mean, we certainly could. Even if we went all the way through the whole entire project and for whatever reason the Friends maybe didn't agree to fund it. I mean, we were offering the Friends the fundraising opportunity of the pavers. That's a board decision, yeah. You
Yeah.
could choose not to and have those go straight to the
All
library.
right, so I think we're covered either
It's a
way.
$3 million fundraising.
Eventually, it would
Well, I mean, it
pay
won't be,
for itself.
the
Yeah.
pavers won't be as quick as the Friends, but
Yeah.
No.
we're covered.
Yeah, but if, just to be clear, when we move forward with the walkway, we will not be able to do the terrace again without ripping up the walkway.
Right.
So,
so we're making a decision
We're making a decision.
yes.
that
You
there
know,
won't be
I
a terrace.
think 2.5
Correct.
million, I don't think it's worth it. I say,
It was always a challenging build.
Trustee Wong, it looked like you had a comment, question?
I think that there are a lot of decisions that have already been made for us. Number one, I kind of started losing my enthusiasm for this entire mega project when there was a lot of lack of enthusiasm with our builder partners or prospective seeking building partners. I don't know why it is that it's so unattractive to people, but evidently it is. We're not going to go ahead and do the big macro project because the Friends aren't interested. But the nucleus of what we originally had as a project is still intact. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on the rough work, and we could do the finished work a little bit later.
Well, I mean, realistically, from the Friends standpoint, if it was $2.5 million, they'd be spending almost the entire Gremmel grant on that. That doesn't make sense.
And this is a budgeted item and is accounted for in the budget
As presented, yes.
as presented.
Not with the addition of the doors and hookups, sewer and water and power hookups.
Yeah, but as I said, we can cover that with our own fundraising if we have. More than cover it.
Okay, so it sounds like you,
So just for clarification, would the board like us to have MZN add those two items into the contract before we sign it? And say that we will approve the contract with those two things added at, without exceeding $115,000? Or we're going to sign this so that we can start moving forward and then bring those additional things in later to be.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna ask
it's
you-
just two line items.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this question. I mean, it seems like they're working with us with a lot of goodwill.
Yes.
And so the thing about it is that if you think that there isn't a much different cost difference if they put it as a change item versus making it as part of a big quote, then just to go ahead and allow you to hurry up and start to break ground, we can just put it as a change order.
Okay.
Well, the doors make a lot of sense, though.
They do.
They really do.
And so,
We need them.
But those can be added as a change order later fairly easily without it having to be a part of the original signed contract.
I'm just thinking about going to the Friends with a completed contract saying, we need $600,000.
But I think we will be able to do that. I mean, the thing is, we will ultimately work with MZN on getting, a fully complete, because they're also going to have to add in, if there was additional power or these change orders that we add. And the Friends expect that too.
Yeah.
They fully understand that they're also going to pay for, or at least they want us to bring to them a request for the doors and a water line and extra seating. I mean, that is the expectation.
I think that I get the sense of they want to have further discussions on how to enrich that side of it.
Right. and
Not
this would immediately be-
just the door and not just the coffee cart hookups. So I think that a lot of those things can be added as change orders later because they will see how much that will be before they say, oh yeah, okay, now let's move forward with that because we still have the base contract.
okay. So
Now,
I'm-
I don't disagree with Trustee Park's assessment of, how beneficial having those doors would be. So, but we also haven't had that discussion of adding, $100,000 to what our budgeted line item for this project was as well, to see that if we can afford it on our own now before we end up moving forward with it. So I think that we would need to have a more of a look on that aspect of it. But I do think that we can approve this and then look at those as change orders fairly soon, especially if the Friends say, yes, those are things that we want to do within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but, well,
And
if
then
you
we
look
just
at our
add it in.
reserves,
So-
we can afford it.
So what I'm trying to get us to, because it seems like we're in agreement, what I'm trying to get us to is the least complicated motion that we can do tonight.
I think the least complicated motion is the Board of Library Trustees approves entering into contract with MZM Construction and Engineering for the Deep Valley Entry Project at the proposed bid price.
I agree. So can I get someone to make that motion?
I motion.
Okay. So we have a motion from trustee Wong, as stated by Director Addington. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any, sounds like no opposed.
And do you want
So
to-
then,
I
so-
do think,
yeah, so now
There's a
the
second
directive
direction.
portion.
I think the second direction would be that the Board of Library Trustees should direct staff to engage with the Friends of the Library on enhancements to the Deep Valley project and an appropriate reimbursement procedure.
Yes. Okay.
The enhancements specifically referring to those two items that trustee Park mentioned, at least as a start. As you enter into those engagements, to keep those two items in mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. So as a directive, do we need a motion for that directive? Or it's just a directive?
I think it just has as a directive.
Okay,
Don't need a motion, yeah.
okay,
Well,
perfect.
it'd be nice if we could come back, if we could get this wrapped up at our next meeting. Something directed ought to say,
We'll certainly
bring
try.
back an amended contract to us at our next meeting that includes at least the sliding doors and the electrical and water hookup and any additional beautification, or comfort projects that the Friends would like to add.
We will definitely add an update to the agenda. It will absolutely depend on how quickly we can get the friends together. Reach out to Cozen,
I'll start the
Drop the-
process tomorrow.
drop the terrace bid.
But
yeah.
we have to,
number
we have to
of,
coordinate with the ad hoc
entities.
together and get the entities
Definitely,
together
definitely
and
do
then figure.
Everything we can to make that happen.
Yes.
Because we want to move forward too, as does MZN.
Yeah.
But at the
Well, I
very
think- I
least, we
think
could
regardless of
definitely
what the
get you,
Friends do, we want to do the sliding door.
and at the very least, we can get that revised proposal together.
Yeah, for sure.
Without, even if we do
matter
not
what.
have everything worked out with the front
And I
side.
think, I don't know whether we'll put a coffee bar out there, but it'd be nice in the summer to be able to have events out there and hook something up.
And
So we
it,
got to sort of do that now.
Yeah.
It makes sense to do it rather than doing it later. So-
yes, and that's just hookups. It's water, power, and waste. That's all.
So we can,
Yeah.
we
you have
should
to-
be able to approve that
And I
next
think we
time,
can get that easily.
Okay, so,
regardless of whether you can meet with the Friends.
Right.
so we know what's being asked for.
We do.
So I think we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda.
We're good. I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is the review and approval of the mid-year budget, fiscal year 2024-25, Finance Manager Lou.
We got a connection problem?
There's another,
Oh, we can't hear
Will,
you,
we
hold
can't
on.
hear you at all. Are you using the right microphone on your Zoom?
Is this better now?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, great. Having a little difficulty sharing, but I can go ahead and just talk about the budget that you have in your packet.
Will, we're going to double check that you have sharing rights. Were you not able to share?
Okay, now I do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to jump to the budget summary slide. We spent a couple of hours in January at the mid-year budget workshop going through all the changes to all the line items. But I just want to kind of just give a brief summary of this one slide. Overall revenues are unchanged. When you look at the mid-year budget in blue versus the approved budget in green at 12.25 million. Expenditures are lower by 515,000 compared to the approved budget. The bulk of that is due to not giving CalPERS the additional discretionary payment of 500,000, given their good performance last fiscal year and continued strong performance into this fiscal year, as well as salary savings due to vacant positions and staff, people on leave. So that's the primary driver of the expense savings, of 515,000. The bottom line is the same as what was presented at the budget workshop. There have been some changes to the IT line item as well as the fixed asset item, but it's a net zero change. It's a wash. Basically, some projects were shuffled around to take care of more urgent tasks, which resulted in additional expenditures for the fixed asset line item as opposed to the infotech line item. Also, one of the things that was pointed out at the budget workshop was transferring an additional 1.25 million to the pension fund. So we already transferred 750,000. That was previously approved, and in the mid-year, I have another 1.25 million on top of that. And that gets us to, and this one slide shows the general fund as well as the pension fund. And towards the middle of the section here, you'll see the transfer of 2 million going out of the general fund into the pension fund, resulting in the pension fund having 3.6 million in assets after this additional transfer. So that pretty much summarizes the mid-year budget. I know we had some discussions earlier in the meeting about the board travel, which is currently in our budget of 12,500. Aside from that, just wanted to see if there's any other questions or changes to this proposed mid-year budget.
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about it in our meeting,
Yeah,
so
we
I
did.
think all of our, at least all my questions were answered there.
So does anyone have any question? If not, we can,
So do we want to have the board travel expense lowered back to 10,000 then? And make that as part of the adjustments for the mid-year budget as opposed to the 12.5?
so Will, my comments were, I understood why you needed to do that so that we would not go over budget. But as people are making decisions, to remember what our initial amount was and try to
Okay.
stick to that.
Understood. So we'll leave it as is.
Yes,
Okay.
because I understood that you don't want that line item going over budget. But I want the trustees to be aware of why you did it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to use it.
That makes sense. And I just wanted to make that clarification.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So what did you need from us here?
I think we would appreciate a motion to approve the mid-year budget.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the mid-year budget as presented?
I move we approve the mid-year budget as presented.
Okay, so I have a motion from trustee Park that we approve the budget as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Sounds like there are no opposed. Thank you.
Good job, Will.
Yeah, well done.
Okay. Next, we have Finance Manager Lou with the update to policy numbers 7036.1 and 7036.2 of the Trustee Policies and Procedures Manual.
Back in May of 2021, the board approved the addition of the pension funding policy to the Section 7,000 Business and Legal Policies and Procedures. And after having 3-4 years go by, there's things that I've learned since this funding policy was first introduced, and I've made some changes to the policy to reflect that, and that's reflected in the memo as well as the red line that's attached to the memo. So the two biggest edits that I had, the two most impactful ones were to add language that targets a 90 to 95% funded ratio to avoid contributing too much money into CalPERS and getting into an overfunded position like we were back in 2022. And the other is to move away from the rigid formulaic approach, which isn't that practical given the dynamics of our budgeting process. I'll point out that, in line with the spirit and intent of the original policy, substantially all of the excess or surplus that we've generated over the last few years will have been swept into the pension fund. So that's the 3.6 million that you saw just a couple of minutes ago, on top of the $500,000 that we gave CalPERS for an additional discretionary payment last fiscal year. So we've done a good job setting money aside, and with the additional money that's going into the pension fund, bringing that to a $3.6 million level, that will offset about half of our pension obligations that, between CalPERS and our First Foundation loan, we'll have about half that's set aside to prepay or to pay CalPERS at, some of that liability in the next couple of years. Do you have any questions on any of the proposed changes?
No, well, we talked about this at our meeting also, so I think,
I had a question about the district's review of the policy. I notice it says that it should be reviewed every 2 years. So we must have reviewed it and there were no changes 2 years ago?
We did not review it 2 years ago.
We did not review it.
Yes, and I was monitoring this to try to figure out if how to best make changes, if any, at that time.
Yeah,
But wasn't quite prepared to have changes until now.
yeah, yeah. So is this something that we could schedule, in a couple of years' time to just make sure that whether there are any changes or not, that you can discuss it with the board?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no additional questions, can I have a motion to approve the changes to this policy?
I move that we approve the proposed revisions to section 7036.1 and 7036.2 of the Trustee Policies and Procedures Manual.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Trustee Butler that we accept the change, well, you heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It sounds like there are no opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Finance Manager Liu.
Next, we have the annual review of PVLD statistics from Deputy Director Roy.
Yes, thank you. Now some of the fun stuff. If you were able to see the memo in the board packet, 2024 has been a very good year for PVLD throughout most of our stats. And from what I can tell, and I looked back about 15 years, and seeing that we were trending upwards for most of that 15 years, with the exception of the COVID days, I can't imagine that it was higher 25 years ago, but it seems that we might have hit all-time highs for our library visits and our library cards issued and our total circulation. So that's a significant milestone, and obviously I didn't go back to the beginning of time, but certainly within recent memory, we're the highest that we've been. We're definitely the highest as we've been since COVID, and even immediately pre-COVID, we're higher than that. So Things are looking very good. We are getting plenty of traffic to all of our branches. We're getting plenty of checkouts. We're having a program attendance. Some of the call-outs that I have in here is that our young readers department has expanded their programming by a little bit, and then their attendance by even more than that. So that's really great. We were expecting to see the teen annex attendance bump up a little bit because it wasn't open the first few months of last year, but it bumped up a lot. So and it's not just the few extra months that it's been open, but it's actually been growing in popularity too. So that's been wonderful. We just continue to see robust use of all of our resources, physical and digital. Even our volunteer hours are up. It's been a really good year, and we expect at some point this to plateau. You know, we hope for next year to look good and maybe be higher in some areas, but we expect to plateau at some point. We're not sure when that will be, but it's always fun to look at these each year and see how they stack up to the previous years. So I'll be really curious to see how 2025 looks. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have about the stats in the grid or any particular data points that we have here, but the chart's there for you to look at, and I'm
So
happy to
have
answer.
we regained control of all of our study rooms?
Yes.
Okay. And a little while back ago, we had a nice little revision of the policies with regards to paid rooms and study rooms. Have the revisions had the desired outcomes?
You mean our rental rooms, like how
Well,
we
yeah,
did
I mean,
rental
yeah, but
policies?
also in terms of, also with study rooms too, in the sense of making sure that they weren't being hogged by.
Yeah, so our study rooms remain one of the most popular spaces in the library, particularly in that afternoon time period. We did implement a new study room reservation system and tweaked our study room policies a little bit. I do think there's been a noticeable drop-off in patron issues around study rooms since that time. I haven't received any complaints or concerns from the Adult Services Department that kind of oversees that, and I usually do hear those when they pop up. So seems like it's been doing much better.
Okay, and for the paid rooms, people who
Yeah.
feel they don't want to pay, they're being able to get access on a fair basis, and people who are capable of paying, they're getting the rooms.
I mean, there's a very small number of people who don't pay for the rooms. I
Okay.
mean, it is one of our revenue generating opportunities. But no, we've had very few, if any, complaints about the meeting rooms. We did actually meet a group of staff to kind of go over our meeting room process. Again, just how we rent the room, how we book the calendar, what kind of space in between facilities needs to clean and set up and things like that. And it kind of helped to get everybody on the same page. But no, these rooms, especially this room, is very, very popular. It can almost be difficult to book it sometimes because there's so many different organizations who utilize it. But no, we're not having any complaints about it.
Well, back then, we spent a lot of time discussing it.
Right.
Enough time has gone for the dust to settle and to see
Yeah, I
if
think
the results.
people understand
Okay.
what they do. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the total cardholder number?
So let's take a look at these. The total PVLD card holders, yeah, the 57,692. So our ILS system, our integrated library system, is our patron database that holds all of our patrons. And in 2019, we moved to a new one. So we have a patron purge policy where if you've been inactive for 5 years, you drop out of our system. We run a report and you get removed from the system. So when we shifted from the old database to the new database, everybody kind of started fresh. We didn't bring over that data of exactly how long a patron has been in the system. It started as a new patron, basically. So we've hit that 5-year mark where for anybody who has been inactive for that 5 years, there was a large initial patron purge, which brought us down from the 70,000 to the 57,000. And ongoing from here, it's just a monthly report that gets run, which would generally be a couple hundred patrons maybe per month. So we won't see that drop off anymore like that unless we get a whole new ILS and then 5 years later we see that again. But moving forward, that number will continue to steadily grow and grow, and will probably plateau at some point. But I don't expect it to get quite as high as 70,000 anymore, because that was during that 5-year period. But probably will settle around 60,000 or so.
And it's a little unrealistic, to be quite honest, 70,000. I mean, there's not 70,000 residents on the Hill. And that's not to say that we don't have a lot of people off the Hill, because we do. We get a bitty of our car holders are from San Pedro and Lomita and Torrance and Redondo Beach and whatnot. But to have that high of a number, it would indicate that you have every single person on the Hill plus, which is highly unlikely, to be quite honest.
So I'm not following trends in reference questions anymore, but I have noticed what's going on here. So what do you think accounts for that?
So for the reference questions, it's an interesting, let's look at the past 3 years here. So let me find that number. Where are we? Total reference questions asked, 41, 35, 35.
I mean, and the 35 is consistent, so that's great.
You know, coming out of COVID, interestingly, we almost had, it was like a grab and go kind of atmosphere. And I think patrons would interact more with staff, which is kind of interesting. We had, our barriers up. Have you guys seen the barriers that are down?
all gone.
So definitely check that out in the library. I feel like there was possibly more of a sense of interaction of, let me check in with the librarian, get what we need. There was things like, we have our Browse for You, which was hugely popular during COVID and has been continued on. Any patron can request a librarian to browse books for them in any kind of subject matter. I don't think the last 2 years have varied that much, but I think it's interesting that it did drop. And I remember talking to our adult services manager, Letty Pavese, about this a couple of years ago. And I think her take on it was just, there's not enough real data to understand why, how many 6,000 more questions were asked one year than another year.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's concerning. I was
Yeah.
just curious if there were like some trends in reference that I wasn't aware of. But it's, it's nice that it's been consistent after that.
I think one of the things,
Yeah.
and we've talked about this before, even as a board, I think people do look to AI as a question for the future of reference. It's very easy to chat GPT a question and get, a fairly good answer back.
Well,
A lot
sometimes
of-
the accuracy is low.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's a fake answer.
Sometimes it's fake answer. But I think that's something that people are looking at. But what we're also seeing is a re-engagement on a social, personal level. People do like to come to the library. They like to go to story times. They like to talk to the librarians. They like to just come and do puzzles. And that's a hugely popular thing. So I think that even if there's maybe a feeling of, disassociation or isolation, in a grander world, I think people still look to the library as some place to go and sit and interact and be with. And we see that in our numbers. I
Yeah,
mean,
those
who come in and-
visit numbers
Yeah.
are amazing.
Just get a lot of people
And the
coming
checkouts
through.
are still rising, so.
And
so yeah.
digital checkouts are increasing. I mean, absolutely. The digital downloads, audiobooks, digital ebooks, streaming services, those are huge, from Canopy and Hoopla, and
Yeah.
those are big.
We continually have to assess,
know.
how to get more resources put into those, and we've got strategies.
Yeah,
for
the
that.
website and mobile app visits is really growing, especially when you look at 22 versus 24.
Yeah.
And so Do we have a capacity limit on that? I mean,
No, in fact, our IT and networking team makes sure that our network can handle the traffic that we're getting. They monitor that. And,
but is that, have we added capacity or?
Yes, we have, and we're in the.
Laz, you might have to come to the.
Yes, so even going back to the busiest days of the last few years, we're looking at the network had no problem handling all the people. And we're talking about there were some summer days that were really hot and a lot of people came into the library. A lot of nodes on the network, we had no problem handling it and we have plenty of bandwidth to handle it. We're in the process, it's a multi-year process and we're about halfway through and completely redoing our back end. And as part of that, we've added some more access points and we're going to add more access points in the coming next 2 years and more powerful ones too. So I'm fully confident we'll be able to handle anything thrown at us in terms of bandwidth and capacity.
Well, that's good news, and I guess, because you can log in from any place, right? You don't have to be at the library to log in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for the electronic databases, you could log in from anywhere.
So, but, wow, 500,000 people using our
Yeah.
systems is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Or not people, but logins, yeah.
No, a lot of people log in from wherever.
Yeah,
Many years ago, we had a tool, looked at the origin of the places where people would log in, and you wouldn't believe, a lot of foreign countries too. Came to our website.
Well, I know whenever I'm traveling, I get that reminder that my books are overdue. And so I'm interacting.
So you're probably part of that statistic.
and from a standpoint of corrupting our database, do we have many attacks?
We've been relatively lucky so far. We have pretty good defenses and, no, I mean, it's so far we've done well.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd hear about it if we didn't, but,
Oh, yeah.
And let's not give
You would.
anyone any ideas.
Thank you, Leslie.
So thank you. And the infographic looks great as well. Thank you. So thank you for compiling this and presenting it tonight.
Absolutely, thank you.
So now we are on to the District Director's Monthly Report.
Thank you, Madam President. I won't keep you. You guys have my written report. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I do always like to start off January, though, with recognizing the employees that we recognized for their annual milestones. This year, there were, I believe, 13 employees that celebrated 15, 20, and 25 years with the library district, so we love to call them out. I try to add, some fun insights, some photos, a little bit of data, just to show the kind of variety and depth and breadth of programming that goes on and how many people are utilizing our collections and coming into the library and attending our story times. Also like to highlight some of the technology that we're using for new marketing. We've got Circulation Manager Ketsi Diaz working on new marketing that shows up every single time you get a notice that says your library book might be overdue. It's not just your library book is overdue, but it's also, hey, have you heard about this great program that's coming up? Just as an opportunity to ensure that people get some data about what's going on and more opportunities to tell them what's out there and what we're doing. The Local History Center is just doing wonderfully. Really can't speak enough about local history adult services librarian and archivist Monique Sugimoto and part-time archivist Tennessee Gardner. They're working with the schools on their ethnic studies programs, which I think are incredibly important these days. They're hosting programs for visiting students. They're doing flyers and encouraging kids to engage in their own local history. So a lot of really wonderful things there. The bilingual story times are doing really well. We're getting more and more people to those, and Trustee Butler has shared with us before how sort of engaging and fun and lively those are. We really love to see that. I'd like to highlight the facilities staff that, really kudos to them because I know they go out of their way to try and save money for the district. And even if there might be some little bit of upfront cost, we know that down the road, we won't be calling a plumber because we can do it ourselves. We won't be calling window washers because we can do it ourselves. And I know they've learned to weld and to solder and to do so many different things that really does make this library district far more robust. And I think the envy of almost any library director that you have a facilities team that is dedicated to your library and you're not sharing them with the city. So we're very happy about that. We were happy to welcome our IT manager, Laszlo Latotsky, to come up and talk a little bit about what was going on with the behind-the-scenes servers and data and bandwidth and whatnot. But his team also constantly keeping us updated on the cutting edge of safety and security and everything else that we do. As President Uno pointed out, passports hit a milestone. I'll be highlighting that in my next report, but they hit a milestone of 20 years and $3 million of revenue earned over that 20 years. Passports is doing fantastic, and they are holding their third annual Passport Fair on March 23rd. So these fairs are incredibly popular. We take this entire room and we put multiple agents in here, no appointments necessary, bring your families. For many people, making an appointment for your entire family is very, very difficult because we, like almost every passport agency, requires you to do individual appointments for every one of you, even if you come in as a group. And it can be very challenging to get mom and dad and multiple children or your mother, your father, or somebody like that all together. And these are opportunities to do that on a weekend where you can just come in, you don't have to have an appointment. We do very, very well with that. And this month, in the month of January, I should say, I'd like to acknowledge that our staff Pay It Forward Award winner was our very own Deputy Director Ryan Roy. So Sarah Uden-Armstrong, our Human Resources Manager, passed the award to Ryan, and you can read her words here, but we'd say congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you
on
so
a
much.
Very
I appreciate that.
well earned award. So a few wonderful things coming up. We mentioned earlier about the Living History Museum of African American Heroes, but we've got craft and tea for adults. We've got a Jane Austen book club coming up. We've got Qigong coming back, Tai Chi. The Peninsula Teen Advisory Council is doing their library carnival again. And of course, a wonderful, I believe it's already happened, but a wonderful Her Traveling Shoes with Ina, the Sunshine Storyteller. So a lot of wonderful things going on at the library, as evidenced by the data that we looked at just prior to this. Our library is much loved, well used, and I think people appreciate what we offer. So we're hoping to continue that in the many years to come.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, comments?
I just noticed that Trustee Park and his wife Sharon were mentioned in the library volunteer program section.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
That's kind of interesting. We were reviewing helping them review what CDs are saleable. And there's a program where you can look up the selling price of certain CDs. So somebody had turned in a CD that on the internet was worth $90,
Wow.
but it was,
Oh.
The library will close 15 minutes. If you have
Note.
any items to check out, please check them out now. The study rooms are now closed. Please vacate the study rooms at this time. New library cards will not be issued at closing.
Our closing announcement.
Well, other nights we've not been here for it.
Right, so now you got to hear it.
but at
Okay.
any rate, we took that disc over to the staff, and they've got a fantastic machine there It cleaned it and got rid of all the scratches. And so we were able to put it on the market for $90
What,
or thereabouts.
what CD was that?
I had never heard of it before.
Okay. Well,
So at any rate, it's it's nice to team up with the library and to do that because
For sure.
otherwise a lot of those donated CDs go out the window.
thank you. Community Relations Committee report, Vice President Butler.
Just really briefly, I want to encourage everyone to, if possible, make time to attend the legislative meet and greet a week from tomorrow. It is, in the past, it's been a great event, and it's such a unique, and I would encourage anyone watching out in the ether to also attend because it's such a unique opportunity to mix and mingle with a wide variety of policymakers and legislators that have, and any kind of stakeholder with the South Bay. So,
I am registered, so I guess I'll see you there.
wonderful.
Is that the same one that was at Cal State Dominguez
Yeah.
Hills?
Yeah. If I may, President Uno?
Yes.
I'll just quickly comment that Finance Manager Lou and I were able to attend the Economic Forecast Breakfast and heard Christopher Thornburg talk about upcoming economic things. I certainly don't have the skill to repeat everything he said, but it was interesting. It was very well attended. The board was acknowledged. Apologies, Trustee Wong was there as well. The board was acknowledged, introduced, and it was a nice event, and I was happy to participate.
Trustee Wong, did you have anything to add?
The economy's doing okay.
Really? Okay. All right. Okay, next is Peninsula Friends of the Library Liaison Report. That would be me, but as I said, I was still on a plane trying to get back here. Or actually, at that point, maybe I was still just sitting in the airport. So I missed it, but I know that Deputy Director Roy went. Do you have anything to share?
Please repeat the question. I was dealing with another
Friends
issue.
in the library, anything going on with them?
For the part of the meeting that I attended, we basically presented a proposal to have them assist with the purchase of an adaptive listening system for this room, which is basically an external device that people can use either attached to a hearing aid or on a lanyard that would help them hear what's going through the PA system in this room. I know that they met with Jennifer about that. Did they make a final decision on that, Jennifer?
I don't believe just as yet.
Yeah, so they haven't quite gotten back to us on that one as yet. Other than that, we did hear a presentation from Executive Director Merlin David just about upcoming events for the Friends, which are publicized here in the library at the entryway. So that was about it.
And we get frequent emails, so.
Yes, those two. Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Next, we have Government Relations from Trustee Easton.
I have nothing specific to the library, but I did come across a new bill that was introduced in January of this year by Blanca Rubio, Assembly Bill 259, which basically extends the teleconferencing framework that was established, sorry for the echo, during COVID, which basically requires that agendas and teleconference locations identify each one in the notice and the agenda, have the teleconference location be accessible to the public. I think the rules that we've been following here was supposed to sunset next year in January, but it is being extended indefinitely. The bill was introduced in January and has been referred to committee as of February 10th. So
What was
we'll wait to
the
see.
bill number again?
259.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Items for future agendas.
So what I have on our agenda for March is typically, well, we typically have an update from the Friends of the Library in January. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. We rescheduled them to February. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do February. So we are hoping for a quarterly, a slightly delayed quarterly report from the Friends of the Library in March. We have our quarterly report from the Peninsula Teen Advisory. We'll have an update on the entryway. We'll keep basically constant updates on the entryway from now on going forward. I would like to bring forward a review of our community relations policy, 8040.2. I've been in dialogue with trustees, Vice President Butler and President Uno on that. And then again, in consultation with President Uno, and we'll have to decide how you want to phrase this, but the start of the director performance review contract compensation discussion. Just as a quick reminder, my contract is up on June 30th. So in conjunction with the discussion about compensation or performance, you may also want to talk about my contract. And then, of course, the trustees know that we are at the beginning of an MOU negotiation cycle. So if and when we hear from the union, we will also be bringing basic updates, understanding that, of course, we don't talk about intense union issues at open meetings, but basic updates just on the general progress of that.
And I know it already sounds like a lot, but an update on the strategic planning process to date?
Oh, yes, yes. We have our meeting already booked. The date of it is escaping me at the
The
moment.
12th, I think.
Yes, I believe you're right. So yes, we'll do a strategic plan update of what we have. Okay.
All right, thank you. So at this, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion from Trustee Easton to adjourn. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.